Cool. All right, well, let's rip into it. So, welcome to Too Weird to Live, Too Rare to Die, a podcast telling the stories of founders, investors, and operators working to turn the world we live in into a better place. So, Michael Jankie, thanks for coming on the show. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me. Great to be here.
Cool, good stuff. Hey, so Michael, as is per the custom of Too Rare to Die, I'm going to throw it over to Wallo, who's going to announce us in. Every week, Wallo prepares a special guest, a song for the guest, and this week is no different. So over to you, Wallo.
Yeah, Michael, have you been sung to before?
So I'll be honest. I used to, in my former life, my formal training is I have a Bachelor of Production, I actually have a Bachelor of Production in or theatre drama, Bachelor of Drama in Theatre Production. It changed after I left, but I was strictly backstage, not front stage. I managed to tour with a lot of entertainers, performers, comedians. So we've had a bit of fun over the time with an audience. So I haven't specifically been sung to, but I've certainly had fun with entertainers.
Today's the day.
Let's change that for you today. We'll change that for you. So I will share some music and share the lyrics so you can follow along, all of that stuff. So here we are, and boom. There's a patch on my arm. There's a patch in my car. Natural. That's the patch. That's the patch. That's the patch. Da da da. Da da da. Da da da. Da da da. Michael Jankie's postman patch. There's a patch on my cat. There's a patch on my hat. On my cat. On my cat. And my mat. Yes, in fact. Da da dum, da da dum, da da dum, da da dum. Michael Jankie's postman patch. Enjoy the outro.
It's beautiful, man. Beautiful.
Oh, that was so good. Nice
I'll
one.
get a recording. Hey, we can turn that into a Facebook ad.
We'll turn it into an NFT.
That's fun.
Awesome. So good. Thanks, Wallo. Unreal. Hey, Michael, so plenty to talk about. You've got a pretty varied and expansive, history in your career of building and selling businesses and so on and so forth, and it's super interesting. But would love to hear if you want to take us back to kind of a little bit about your background, where you came from, who is Michael Jankie, I guess.
Yeah, sure. So it's I don't get to tell the whole story very often, but it's often fun and really sort of leads into why I have somewhat of a unique understanding of people and business and trying things and emotional attachments or lack of emotional attachment. I'm from Melbourne, born and bred, still live here in Melbourne. I've been I won't go all the way back to school. Well, you know what? I will. I'll go back to when I was 3 or 4 years old.
Mm-hmm.
My best friend, Gary, who I went to school with, whole way through from sort of kinder to secondary school, lived about 100 meters up the road from me. And it's the reason I mentioned that, and I'll fast forward very quickly. It's Gary. So we finished school, went our separate ways for about 10 years, and then ended up being back in business together. So Gary's one of my co-founders in the Natural Patch company, and has been in all the technology businesses that we've been in and out of over the last 10 or so years. So the story of Gary and I dates back, not quite 40 years, but not that far off, closer to 40 than 35.
Classic.
So anyway, let me fast forward. My working careers. It's sort of funny. I went to a private school, but I not a typical academic student. And so to get out of class, I do the co-curricular backstage sort of stuff. And that led me to get into a bit of trouble at school. And I think there's probably an overarching theme with my schooling and then career of knowing better, so not listening to what people tell me to do, or not listening to the way things are taught or how they're done. And even at university was sort of the same thing, but doing things my own way. And it really came from trying to take shortcuts. And it's not that I'm a lazy person, but I also I love efficiency, and so I'm like, if that's not efficient, then like it doesn't work for me. Anyway, after school, after getting in trouble a lot at school, I ended up being accepted into the Victorian College of the Arts to do a Bachelor of Dramatic Art in Theatre Production. So it's very much the backstage rather than front of stage stuff. But it was this funny thing. It was sort of coming from a private school, although I wasn't in class very much. It was a portfolio-based application, so it wasn't like a score-based entry. And it was a very small class, so I was sort of quite shocked that I got in. So there's only about 20 or 21 of us that got in. 21 of us started, maybe 10 finished or 11 finished. But it was also this thing of like the work was easy. Like there was sort of like no homework. It was just high contact hours, but no homework. And the contact hours were about working on theatre shows and that sort of thing. And somehow I'd managed to start my own company when, at about the same time as starting university. So this funny sort of thing happened where we'd be assigned to work on a school production, and I sort of majored in lighting design, and then in my career sort of moved into production management. But I'd be at uni and they'd be like, hey, work on this, school production or university production. And then on the side, I'd be like sort of, working on commercial sort of projects with real budgets and getting paid fees and stuff. So I used to get in trouble at university too. They'd be like,
So it was like the analogy of the guy who's in class with a newspaper in front of him, but he's actually got a comic book inside of the inside of the fold.
Yeah, absolutely. And I treated university like I did the things that I thought were worthwhile and not the things I was necessarily told to do. So this pissed off some of my lecturers. It was I remember there's a great story. Unfortunately, both lecturers have now since passed, but I remember they used to sit us down every half year and say, this is a student review, and that you'd sort of be sat in the middle of or at the front of a room, and there'd be all the lecturers sitting like in a U shape around you, and they'd have a box of tissues on the table for you for when you walked in, because it was like psychologically getting us ready that they were going to be mean to us or something. And I remember one of my lecturers, one stage said to me, Michael, you don't attend enough. You're not putting in enough hours. And I was like, so what have I missed? And they just sort of said, well, it's the general vibe of it. And I just went, okay, cool. And then another one of my lecturers said, you'll never work in this industry. And then one of the other lecturers turns around and just said, what are you talking about? For the last 3 years, he's like been working more than any other student professionally. Like it's probably one of the most successful in the class. And that was, it was sort of this funny thing of that's again, down that same theme of, doing what I want, taking the shortcuts. Like, why waste my time doing, I don't know, just hanging around on campus when I can be out doing work. Anyway, that was a glorious. So after university, I sort of ran a business that was very closely tied to my own name and my own ego, and sort of a big emotional attachment. That was a really like successful company. We were a team of I guess professionals doing lighting design work and production management work, and we were touring theatre shows or running theatre shows in Melbourne, all over Australia, and even internationally. And we used to do a lot of comedy work as well, so certainly around the Melbourne comedy scene. Yeah, used to tour with a lot of comedians, and it's been about 10 years since I've been out of that, and I still look back on those years and just sort of shake my head at the stories, some of the things we worked on and some of the people we toured with, and sort of the major events that happened. I'm just like, smiling. And even now, what's sort of somewhat topical actually just in the last week is there's talk of Melbourne getting the Commonwealth Games in 2026. And I still like that. I read that article, it just brought this huge grin to my face, because I remember working quite closely on the Melbourne 2006 Commonwealth Games, and how like an amazing time that was in Melbourne and in Australia and in our business to be working on that. And so anyway, those sort of things are ace, but I call that my sort of 10 or 12 year MBA, that business. Rather than spend, $100 grand getting an MBA, I probably spent more than that losing money in that business overall. Learned the hard way.
But actually learnt as well, you learnt the hard way, but you actually learnt by doing, like there's a million things you can learn in the classroom, and then when you actually go out and put your hands on something and get your hands dirty, and sure, you might, learn a lot of things the hard way, but you've actually gone and done it, it's a lot easier to go and do the next thing when you've actually executed on something rather than just learnt about it.
Yeah, that's right. And I even remember early on in my career in that business as a production manager, which is someone who essentially takes a show from, when a director or producer has a concept and delivers the product, which is, the stage show or the tour or whatever it is. I remember early on in my career going, when I was completely inexperienced, I'm like, I can nail this. The reason I can nail this is because, if in this job, it's 90% effort and sort of grind and 10% experience. Like experience doesn't matter. It's about the effort and the grind. And so early in my career, I knew that doesn't matter what the challenge was, I could solve this challenge as long as I put my mind into it and time and effort. And then towards the end of my career, I could look back and smile and go, these days it's about 90% experience and 10% effort. I can know 6 months out what the problems are going to be as opposed to delivering that, or fixing those problems on the ground. And both are still completely valid points of view. And so still in a business these days, when we start a business or launch something, it's partially from experience where, we take the layer and go, we know what we're doing. We know what this needs to look like. We know what the metrics need to be. We know if this idea can succeed. But also part of it is, or a big part of it is, just because people say it's done this way or people with experience say how to do things doesn't mean that's the way that they're done. So let's do it differently, and that's how we're going to win. That's how we're going to differentiate and win. And anyway, so I got out of that business, learned a whole lot of lessons like not being too emotionally attached, not giving people payment terms, because the worst thing the thing I hated most was paying an accounts receivable person that would be chasing up customers to pay their bills from 30, 60, 90, 120 days ago. Like it was just like, screw this. Let's go for many customers, paying up front or paying on credit card rather than one or two or, 5 or 10, whatever it might be. And so where I got back together with Gary is towards the end of that period, we were sort of building out a more corporate arm of the business, and Gary had just come in from the back of burnt out direct sales. So he was sort of selling energy plans door to door or credit cards at the airport and that sort of stuff.
That's hard stuff. Yeah. The door to door, the dreaded door to door. I mean, I've never done it, but I hope I never have to.
Yeah, it's it's interesting. I've never done it either, and I'd be terrible at it. But Gary always says he like the training he received from that of learning rejection, learning how things are numbers games, where it's you can work out numbers. Yeah, it's really, really valuable. Anyway, we got together and went, fuck it, there's this, whole new, growing market of technology companies where you can, sort of with a website, you can be big from day one. And that was about 10 years ago. And we've done a whole lot of fun things since then and still doing fun things now. We've had a few successes along the way, less unsuccessful things, but still a handful. And we're just at the moment we sort of there has been certainly even between us and in our businesses this sort of reset from COVID and sort of the nature of how we work and live, and we're really sort of enjoying that and embracing that at the moment.
Awesome.
Yeah,
sounds unreal. And I'm interested to know. So obviously, like you said, you kind of transitioned from, I guess, a passion industry. Like you said, theatre, you went and studied theatre and so on and so forth. That led you to, your own business, and you're in that business for a decent while and so forth. When you got together again with Gary and you said, all right, cool, there's this new world of opportunities in front of us. We've got a lot of skills in business now. how can we apply those skills to a new venture and in the digital space? When you look at your LinkedIn, you see somebody who, builds and sells businesses. That's what it looks like, Like, was that the prerogative going in? Was it like, hey, we can make an opportunity here to flip businesses, to build something, or did it just happen naturally? How did this whole thing come about?
Yeah, really, really excellent question. All our businesses and the nature of every single thing we've done, or single thing we've pursued, has been about solving a problem or a need or a desire of our own. And so, with the production businesses, towards the end of the production businesses, we had this really frustrating arm of the business that was hire account managers for $100,000 a year, and they would build a book of sales. And it was a really frustrating thing for us because it'd be like there'd always be this threat of them leaving. And we discovered the world of like remote working at the time, and I'd hired a couple of virtual assistants out of the Philippines. And we started experimenting. We didn't know we were experimenting at the time, but I remember we had this website it was landing pages built for ads to drive traffic to these landing pages to hire out, sort of lighting and sound equipment. And we ran this experiment where we had an account executive in the office sitting on live chat. And he'd be like, oh, no, shit. And after 2 weeks of checking how's it going, oh, not so good. And then be like, oh, we realized that a week ago he turned it off to go to the toilet and never turned it back on. And so I remember grabbing meds, and it's sort of funny to think about this because 10 years later we still work with meds, but grabbing my VA at the time and saying, hey, could you do me a favor? Could you take over from Brad in the office and sit on this? And that was like the changes that live chat made on a website that was being staffed appropriately sort of blew our mind. And so even though that came out of our production business, that's the business called Lead Chat today. We still own it, still run it, but that was very much solving a problem we had. And so still sort of is.
I feel like that's the best way to start a business. That's the best way to start a business. You have an intricate, very close to hand idea, overview of the pain. This sucks.
Yeah.
I want to fix it for myself, and I know it's going to add such huge value to us. There's got to be other people out there that are going to want to, buy the product or service.
Yeah, it's a psychological thing. I think you really have to know what to know what the product is that you're selling, to understand how to sell it, and to sort of win at sort of selling it. You need to understand the psychology of the customer. And so the best way to understand the psychology of the customer is to be the customer. And that is the same with everything we've done and doing. It is, we're solving a problem for ourselves. Let's solve it for other people too. That's sort of the nature of what we're doing. And so we've certainly sold a bunch of businesses, and that's not come around because we thought let's build and then sell. That's come around because experience over the last sort of 10 years has taught us that one, we like to have fun. So everything we really do want to enjoy what we're doing. Now, not everything is fun. There are certainly points that are not fun. There's always, boring accounting or legal or whatever other matters to deal with, compliance, all these sort of things, but it's part of winning, so it can be fun. But what we've really learned is that we enjoy taking a concept or an idea. We enjoy taking sort of that from 0 to 1. But we really like to build. We like to start something, build it. And then it gets to this point where when it starts to get a little bit more serious, and that can be a sliding scale of what that actually means. But when it starts to get heavy layers of management, heavy layers of direct reports, it's no longer fun for us. And so what has tended to happen is that's been the points where we've gone, you know what, it's time to move on. Someone will do a better job with this business by taking it from the 1 to 100 point.
Yeah, it sounds like you're a true entrepreneur, kind of like I like to think of entrepreneurs as kind of inventors, the inventors of our generation, I guess. And it feels like you're a real product guy and so forth. I want to ask a real broad question because I'm interested to hear your thoughts on this. so many people in life sit there and they have an idea of something that they would love to try and put out into the world. They want to start a business, they want to, improve an industry. They've got this grand idea, but they get held back. They're very worried about the repercussions of failure or whatever it may be. You seem like the opposite of that guy. I'm kind of quite like that, and I have my feelings for why, for me, that is the case. I kind of act first, think later, jump in the deep end, learn how to swim. But I'm interested to know where you think it came from your end.
Yeah, really excellent question. So first things first, the younger you are, or the less commitments you have, I should say, the easier it is to start something. And 100%. So if you've had past success and you can still ride on the coattails of that success, being you've sort of played the game of life and money and been able to get to a certain level and press save, so you can't really go backwards from there. You have a fortunate position. You have a very lucky position to be able to try something new, because failure isn't desperation. Now, in saying all this, I have always held a very strong opinion of not having regrets. And it's sort of like that sliding doors thing, is no matter what you do, things could have gone another way. And there are many, many pivotal moments in my life that I look at, had I not done this, then that wouldn't have happened. And as part of that, I have a strong view, or a strong belief, that no matter how bad things might get, they always get better. And the reason I hold that view is because it's always been true for me. So at some point it may not be true for me. Saying may get bad and not get better, but up until this stage of my life and for the foreseeable future, I can look at things and say, no matter how bad things get, things will get better. So in Australia, we have this problem, this tall poppy thing. And so you launch something and you're afraid to tell people publicly what you're doing. And that's probably more because people are going to sort of talk shit about you behind your back, and you might care about that. And so we tend to launch things quietly, not rely on family or friends to really back those businesses, but actually go out and try and get real customers. And then, they're successes or not successes. And that thing of, if you try something, give it a crack. If it doesn't work, it doesn't matter. Like if I was recently chatting to a friend who's it worked in actually a government job, and she earns fairly significant money, but is somewhat bored or unexcited and wants to get into the corporate world, but the corporate world is going to pay her less. Certainly less initially, and she's just like, I'm just not sure what to do. My opinion, similarly with things like that, is, well, take the leap, do it. Like, what's the worst case that happens? You go, you're earning 20 or 30% less for a couple of years. That might be a failure, and it'll fail, falls in heap, but government will take you back if you really need to. So, like, the risk you're taking is actually really low. And so, yeah, my opinion is, like, just do it. I mean, think about what you're doing, think about what the end point is, but get out and do it. Don't be too afraid to do it, because, like, it failing, which, a large majority of things do fail, you learn lessons, but also it's very, very far from the end of the world.
Yeah. No, that's solid advice. I feel like I personally invested in real estate really early, so my kind of risk level was high from a young age. So I feel like I really benefited from that. Like the big decisions, I was kind of making them from an early age, and I feel like that really helps. So, Michael, when you're looking at businesses to start, what was the first exit that you had? The first was it the production company, or was it the next venture into the digital space? And tell us a little bit about the story of, like, getting to that exit. Getting to a successful sale, because, like, a lot of people build businesses. Not many people sell businesses. You've done it a number of times. I'm interested to hear how that whole process was, feeling it out and getting to that point.
Yeah, so I'll go back and say we never build these businesses to sell, really.
Yeah.
It's not designed. So what that means is we actually build businesses to be profitable, which in technology space can be it can be good and bad. And so I do invest in technology companies, and so I have different views on that. So, but the businesses we build are about a profit and loss and a cash flow. Can can they stand on their own? And so the selling the production business, we certainly did sell, but I won't talk about that because that was not a successful sale. That was like a sort of recouping some of the losses. The first business we really sold was an e-commerce business. We probably sold it way back in 2016. And that was a business that was producing fantastic profits and fantastic cash flow. Actually, the cash flow was amazing. The profits were amazing. But we just got to this point where back then we were like, you know what, e-commerce, it's sort of like, it's a product business, not a technology business. And we'd like to shift into technology businesses, like focus on software rather than product. And so we decided, let's sell this because it's a distraction. We've made a bunch of money along the way. And when I say we, it was actually my business partner who said, I'm going to sell this. And I'm like, I don't have time for that. Like, we've never built this business to sell. Good luck to you. And so the lesson from that, or the lesson that we learned from that, was we made great money along the way. And so we actually, we were talking earlier about how we've got a place down the coast, down in Rye. So my business partner and I bought, well, we actually only owned part of the house, but we bought it with profits from that business way back then. And then, result. And when we sold that business, I remember saying to him, like, oh, wow, like, I didn't think we'd ever sell this business. Like, we're sitting on a bit of money now, but you or I have not factored this into our lifestyle. So I actually somehow convinced him, and God bless the guy for going along with the crazy idea, but let's just invest it. Like, let's invest it in other things. And we invested in other things, and those other things today have been like moderately to sort of very successful. And that's sort of been the other lesson of when we sell these companies, we tend to reinvest the money. So it's sort of, I guess we pay ourselves wages, we have income that we live off. And then when we have an exit and have any financial success from that, we tend to try and reinvest that money into other projects or other things that we find interesting, as sort of like future-proofing future-proofing ourselves for when we're not earning an income.
Yeah. Giving yourselves the ability to try more things and potentially fail along the way, and also, you know, potentially win again along the way. I'm interested to know, so how's the dynamic with you and Gary, the I guess consistent co-founder relationship? You know, it's a super dicey dynamic. But when it's done well, it's amazing. I remember going to an Antler event. Do you know Antler?
Yep.
Antler, the accelerator, or whatever you would call them. I guess you call them accelerator. Startup Factory, whatever. They have like matchups and meetups and you know, basically co-founder speed dating or whatever to align people together. But you know, you always hear all the famous stories of, oh my God, amazing company, and then, you know, co-founder break up and it was a nightmare, or, you know, got stuck in this relationship. That there's all these bad stories, but you've had lots of wins. What do you think is like the key to having, just a healthy co-founder relationship and thriving as a duo?
Yeah, it's a really great question, and there are even more analogies. Forget just like business and startups or anything like that as co-founders. Like, you look at it, and like almost every band has a breakup and has a bad breakup story. And they're the same things: band members, co-founders. It's all in one of the same. And I think what happens is there's naturally a point where you start off in one place at one level, and each person seeks the fame or the ego, themselves, and the other person starts to not like that, and that's what happens. Now, fortunately, Gary and I have been friends, as I mentioned, since we were about 3 years old. So
crazy.
Yeah, we've been through a lot together. Like we literally.
You probably peed your pants together.
Yeah, 100%, 100%. But you know, we talked about our dreams together, like all these sort of things. Sort of known, and I actually think I'm really fortunate. I've got a lot of friends that I've had for 20, 25 years. That, you know, from really all over the country. And that, like, we've known each other since we were sort of teenagers, and we've got now friends in high places and friends all over the world. Almost any country we go to, I can find a friend or catch up with a friend, or say this person who's now a senior exec at this Fortune 500 company or whatever it is. But also this thing of knowing, I know where you came from. I know what we used to get up to as teenagers. And that's the same with co-founders. It's I've really only had two main partners in my working career, one in the events business and one now. And I've been really fortunate that both were really successful from founder points of view. The key thing the whole founder speed dating, that sort of thing, it's very foreign to me. It would never work for me. Now I have taken co-founders on in a couple of businesses that we're running now that are sort of newer relationships, but they are a different dynamic to Gary and I. And I think part of the success is also knowing when it's not going to work anymore. Like, with Gary, my old friend and co-founder that we've had so much success, it's also about going, there's going to be a point at which we go, like, we're not going to do any more new businesses together. Like we're both at a level where we're chasing different dreams or different desires, and just understanding that and not getting too upset. Now, all these things, again, come from the fortune of we've had successes. So it's not like we have everything riding on the coattails of one thing. And it's just understanding that. And I think also, as you get a bit more experience, you also start to learn about what's important, what makes sense in life, what the dream you're chasing is, and what it means to not hit that dream or to hit that dream. So I just think the dynamics are hard. Someone who operates on a similar level to you, on an intelligence level, on an economic level, on a values level, they're all important things. But also opposites can be good.
Yeah. And Michael, considering how you are and what your strengths are, what skills or what sort of person do you need in a co-founder?
You need someone who's very understanding. So having an appreciation for psychology for all co-founders, I think, is really important. Because I would say things and get into moods that are really frustrating. And I know with Gary, he knows how to push my buttons if he wants to, and he knows how to not push my buttons if he wants to, and that can be in the same conversation. So I can be saying something that's totally outrageous, and he'll know how to trigger me to get me to go, he'll know how to gaslight me. But he'll also equally and importantly know when not to gaslight me. And just to say, oh, you know what, Michael? Yeah, you're absolutely right. And, you said this and I agree with you, so let's do that. It's probably that appreciation for other people. So listening is a really important skill.
Hey, you mentioned 0 to 1. So, there's a lot more entrepreneurs out there that are trying to go from 0 to 1 to 1 to 100, really, just by process of elimination, obviously. But what are the keys? What skills do you need to have as founder, co-founder, early stage team to get, a product off the ground, a go-to-market team. A go-to-market team up and running. That's the toughest thing. That first bit of momentum and finding product market fit. You've done it on multiple occasions. Like, what are the things that you think are the key attributes from a team and from you as a founder? And how do you make that happen?
Yeah, so I think in business you have different levels of team and requirements. So in the early stages of a company, all your entire team needs to be it needs to be a very creative team. So they need to be able to, and by creativity, they need to be able to make decisions and have a point that their contributions contribute to the overall DNA and direction of the company or the legacy of the company. And as a business sort of progresses and gets a bit more serious, those things need to delineate a little bit more into sort of reporting or management sort of relationships. And following processes, and then larger and larger businesses get more about, you need to find people who can fulfill a role of process rather than fulfill a role of creative thinking. And so these days, good and bad, we probably say that we'd have enough experience to determine whether something has a high potential of working, like whether it makes sense. But we do a lot of database research in things. So for a product company like the Natural Patch Co. that we're running now, it's like we'll look at what audiences might look like on ads or Google search or that sort of thing. We'll look at what competitors are doing. There are data points to look at and go, oh, this is sort of interesting. And there are other companies to look at to go, here's how a company 2 or 3 or 5 years ago had success. Like, what's the new take on that? But I think building an early team is about building people who sort of Jack or Jills or Jameses of all trades. So very much our team is able to flexibly move between roles, and then just as you start to mature, you're hiring for specific roles and trying to hire experts for specific roles that are, I guess, less about the creativity, more about the function.
Yeah. And do you have the motivation to kind of take something from? I mean, you seem like a guy who is built on fundamentals, so not raising crazy amounts of capital on a crazy valuation and chasing that unicorn status and trying to, you don't seem like that guy from everything you've told me, but
no, I'm not. Yeah.
But do you have aspirations to, because it seems like you've had a bunch of really great exits, but do you have the fire in your belly to go, all right, cool, I'm going to create the next Canva or whatever, or are you really happy in building that stuff from 0 to 1?
So the not raising money thing, as I said, I sort of invest now. It's sort of like as a hobby. And so I have differing opinions on this. I'm not a fan of raising money because of the path that drives you down. And it's still actually just yesterday, the day before, I was reading a Twitter thread about a large US company and companies that they're funded and who's funded them, and how I realized what the politics are at play. That's not just about this is a good idea or has good fundamentals. It can be about a whole bunch of other things. As much as I see friends with such huge successes far beyond, sort of my wildest dreams financially, it's just not the path for me. So with experience, maturity, and sort of, I think as you get older and realize that, some of those dreams have to curb down, I've started to appreciate values and life values more and more. So I've started to appreciate what can I be doing now to have a month off with my kids whilst they're young, or or plan to go traveling, take a sabbatical, and for 6 months or 12 months with my kids before they get to a certain age. How do I teach them what's important in life? And that also, that changes from time to time. But yes, raising money isn't my thing because I don't want to be driven by the pressures of what that system is. But I certainly invest in companies like that because the right ones that work can have some really huge success for everyone. And these different factors and different paths suit different personality types. I'm not the personality type, and certainly my co-founder Gary is not the personality type where we want to raise money from someone who will constantly be writing us and telling us and pushing us to do this, that, and then it might all fall into a heap, not because the product's bad, but because the financial structure is bad.
They diametrically oppose really paths and decisions in running a business, and therefore running your life, I feel like. Sorry, just quickly on that. So we have raised money in the past, and I remember about 10 years ago we raised some money for a company that didn't actually work out because we had no idea what we were doing. It was a good idea, but just didn't work. But forever feel guilty about that, and I laugh at how little money it was in the scheme of things, but I forever feel guilty about not repaying them, but not giving them wild success. And it's sort of funny that I say it because as an investor, I'm like, as soon as I'm excited about an investment, it tends to be that I'm excited about an investment, and then as soon as I send the money over, I'm like, yeah, whatever, money spent, it's gone. But as someone who's taken money before, it's just that I don't know, I guess, where my
guilt lies, it just falls too much to, just people putting money in, which is probably not where it should lie.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Yeah, fair enough. Hey, so I would love to hear about, the Natural Patch company. That's obviously, your most recent project, you would say, or like that's really up and thriving. So, tell us a little bit about it. What stage is it at? What does it do?
Yeah,
I would love to hear about your newest adventure, I guess you'd call it.
For sure. So, as all things tie in with starting new businesses, way back in maybe it was October or November 2019, I remember standing in the office with my co-founder Gary, who's now since relocated to the Sunshine Coast in Queensland.
Gary.
Yeah, I was telling him how my youngest, when we go to the holiday house in Rye, my youngest just somehow mosquitoes just annihilate her, and she has these huge welts from mosquito bites. And we were just talking about it, and his wife has been sort of into natural or aromatherapy oils for many years, and I remember him saying, Evie makes some aromatherapy concoctions that you could rub on the skin or do this or do that. And somehow we just sort of went, wouldn't it be cool? I can't even quite remember how we got there, but my kids love stickers. Wouldn't it be cool if we had stickers, but also had the essential oils in them that repelled mosquitoes? And that solved the problem for my then 1.5-year-old Sadie from getting bitten at the holiday house that we bought from the profits of the business a few years ago.
Yeah. It's all come full circle.
Yeah, and it always does with every business. And so this funny thing happened where we went, I remember that over that summer, so I remember over December and January, and if I look back at my text messages and WhatsApps with Gary, there'll be all these things about, here's an idea, this is why it would work. And we'd learned, so the honest truth is we'd learned all these lessons from running an e-commerce business in the past about what is good and what is bad about e-commerce. And so I can tell you some fundamentals from us. Is consumable product is good, non-consumable is bad because you want to get a repeat order rate. Product that fits in an envelope is good, product that fits in a package is bad because your shipping rates are very expensive. Product that is a solution for kids or pets is good. Products that are solutions for women and less in effect men are bad because people will make a spending decision on their child or their pet a lot faster than they will on themselves. Our product, which is that sort of size, fits in an envelope. Great for shipping. It's a consumable product. Great for repurchase rates. It's a natural product, great for the environment. It started ticking all these boxes. Anyway, so we're seeing all this back and forth, November, December, December, January, and then we did nothing. And this was into the start of 2020. And I remember when the pandemic hit around probably about April, after we had a very stressful period of packing up our office, not in person, and for any business owner that had staff at the time, it was just go, stress. I remember saying to Gary, you know what? We've sat on this idea for 4 months, which is a long time for us. We might go broke in our technology businesses. So fuck it, let's do it. Now's the time to do it. Pile on the stress.
The two words that seal any real business agreement at the very end.
Yeah. And so we launched with a mosquito-repellent sticker, and we just have the experience with sourcing product, with standing up a Shopify site, getting that live. We had a business that was a Shopify app once upon a time that we sold. All these sort of things. We had enough experience where we could launch that relatively quickly and start testing it relatively quickly. And we saw the immediate indicators were really good. And we just sort of went, this is sort of cool. And after 3 months, it's all right, this is serious. Let's roll it out of sort of just this shell entity that we had doing nothing and start naming it correctly and start thinking about things. And after a year, we sort of said, well, what other products besides mosquito repellent and now there's something called Magic Patch, which is the post-bite remedy or post-bite sticker. And so we actually were originally just called Buzz Patch, which was the first product. And we realized that this is good. This is a good market, and we're working with some universities on even the patch, the actual sticker technology. As funny as that sounds, what else can we be solving? Like how can we sort of give parents a shortcut to other remedies? Like not just a shortcut to not getting bitten by mosquitoes, but maybe it's a shortcut to getting your kids to bed, or having focusing on schoolwork, or or meditating, whatever it might be. And so we just had this view of stand this up, be global from day one. We very quickly put together warehouses, so localized shipping. We knew we had to have fast shipping, so we localized shipping in the US, in Canada, in Australia, Singapore, and New Zealand. And we're able to do that. And even like that, going back to that, even tying in with having friends everywhere. So our first distribution channel in the US and Canada was literally old friends, old school friends, old friends from 25 years ago, where we'd be like, hey, Dave, do you have some spare time during the pandemic? Can we ship a bunch of product to you? And quite successfully, actually. One of our friends, Dave, who lives in the US, who's actually visiting Melbourne at the moment, they had this problem where they were in Middle America. I shouldn't say a problem, but like in Middle America, they were running some Airbnbs and alongside a bunch of other things. And it wasn't, pandemic wasn't great for anyone. And I remember saying, hey, can we stand this up? And I know at some point they were doing essentially a third-party logistics out of the US for the entire continental United States. And they all of a sudden had stood up a 3PL for us. We're hiring like 10 people from their local small town. Like it was just like, what a success story. Everyone's making bank, and like we're loving it, you're loving it. So it really, everything ties together. So
that's awesome. You're able to use your old buddies. It's pretty funny. We started as an Australian company, Athyna, and then we incorporated into the US, and we used this Stripe product called Stripe Atlas. We used Stripe Atlas, and it was very early in Stripe Atlas's product life. And what happened was, when you sign up to Stripe Atlas, it gave you a US address, but it gave you Stripe's US address, which just was all these different problems all in one. And I was thinking, okay, cool. And we didn't really have much money, and it's really quite expensive to have a US postal address and so forth. So I spoke to my buddy Harry, who I met in Peru actually about 12 years earlier at a hostel. We call him Sucio, which is Spanish for Dirty Harry. And I spoke to Sucio and I said, hey mate, can I use your address for Athena's official business address? And it was like, yeah, cool, no worries. It's actually, I won't read the address out, but it's still the address of Athyna today, is Harry's address in San Diego. So,
hilarious.
Definitely going to lean on.
Sucio has 50% of Athena's equity right now.
Yeah, that's right. He's slowly planning a corporate takeover. I have to watch him. He's a bit of a dodgy bastard, actually. No, they're just joking. But no, that's great.
So stories. So we're we've done in the past where we've incorporated into the US, but the Natural Patch Co is an Australian entity that operates in multiple countries. And that comes with a whole bunch of problems. One being that we have some customers send us checks. So we have a wholesale channel where we sell into retailers, and we have customers sending us checks, but we have no way to bank a check in the US. So we use actually Airwallex, a little bit of Wise for our banking needs, but there's no way to bank a check into Airwallex. And so the same friend in the US, I'm like, hey, some people have posted us some checks. Can we have them redirected to you? You bank them into your business account, and then we'll do the deal and get the money across to us, and same sort of thing. So all of a sudden we're able to bank some dollars. That like again, it's just like, hey, can just WhatsApp friends anywhere in the world and figure that out.
Yeah. You got to call in the favors. That's what friends are for.
Indeed.
Yeah. Hey, so look, Michael, I would love to hear. Before I'm going to throw it to Wallo shortly to wrap us up with some rapid fire questions, but would love to hear a little bit about where would you like to be in your life? Natural Patch Co. Your other ventures. What is the future for you in 5 or 10 years? What do you expect, and what are you trying to achieve?
Yeah, so 5 or 10 years. So In terms of business planning, like we'll never really plan beyond 12 months. But the planning for 12 months time is not particularly serious. So we tend to plan 3 months in ahead of, hey, what are we going to do over the next 3 months and achieve? And that's also fortunate for not raising money. We can do that as we wish. Personal life. I honestly have, like, my businesses have been a means to enjoying what I do for a living, plus making some money. And the truth is, I would love to get to a point where I can go, you know what, I'm investing in, or I'm putting my time and effort and money into things that make a difference. And whatever that means, it means at the time. Not necessarily what it is today, but the point is being at a point where I'm comfortable enough and in a fortunate enough position where I can do things that affect change rather than just make a profit. And I think really the Natural Patch Co is a company that's probably, of everything we've done, the one leading us most to that path of going, do things that are not just like for profit, but actually do good. And almost one of these lessons I've learned is with product. So generally people, like, you've got your lefties and your greenies and they're into environment and do good and that sort of thing. But fundamentally, consumers will buy products that are good for the environment or chemical free or not genetically modified if they are the same price or better and achieve the same results or better. And so really with the Natural Patch codes, like we don't push, like, our messaging isn't about choose, cruelty free or choose environmentally friendly or choose, natural chemical free product. Our message is, or like with mosquitoes, like find a great repellent that is convenient, that your kids will enjoy. And just by the way, it happens to be the same price or cheaper than the alternative methods, which are actually have chemicals in them or are bad for the environment. And so that's all just a pathway to leading towards, if you can produce products that do good but don't cost any more, you're going to win over a consumer. And like in terms of business and self-satisfaction, it's actually a really great outcome for me.
Yeah.
100%.
Yeah.
100%. Awesome.
So
going to throw it over to you, Wallo.
Yeah.
Over to you, Wallo, for some rapid fire.
Okay. Yeah, sure. Okay. So, Michael, what is your favorite book right now? I think Doc is back in, is frozen kind of.
Oh no, you lost me. Shit. Sorry, guys.
I get asked about books from time to time. I'm actually a big podcast listener rather than book reader, and I can give you excuses as to why that is, but the truth is just I don't enjoy sitting down and reading. It's probably a bit of a predisposition of my, chemical makeup that I can't sit still. So I'm a big podcast listener. So I really roll between podcasts. So it's about what's interesting, exciting, what's educational. I'm a massive, I don't do anything fiction in terms of books or podcasts or anything. It's all non-fiction. At the moment, I'm listening to My First Million, which is just, they tend to be interviews of people who've had successes and how they got there and what they're doing. And I just find that really interesting from understanding the psychology of consideration as to how people are doing things and why they're doing things in a certain way.
Yeah. Okay. My next question is, what is one tool that you can't live without?
One tool that I cannot live without. I think the advent of the iPhone. So work. A lot of people say distractions of phones and those sort of things means you're never off. I find that tools like the phone, even my Apple Watch, and recently I got actually the Aura Ring. They're tools that allow me to switch off a little bit more than I would. So I feel like my general work hours are sort of 8 till 3. And I do that so I've got time in the afternoons that I can, help with family stuff or have my own personal time, whatever that might be, going to the dentist, whatever. And I find devices and technology like that has made things like I don't need to be stressed and standing in front of my computer to be able to keep going with work or be in touch that, I know how things work. And the watch actually, the move from just having a phone to having a watch means I've just programmed my settings and notifications on my watch that basically if my phone vibrates in my pocket, I know it's work related. If my watch vibrates, it's going to be personal, like it's going to be a text message or a WhatsApp message, not an email or anything like that.
Yeah. So the ecosystem, I guess.
Yeah. Well, and speaking of the ecosystem, I'm a massive Apple fanboy, always have been, because like, you get stuck in this ecosystem of Apple equipment, and then you sort of need to keep going down that path so it all just works together.
Yeah. Okay. My final question is, what advice do you have to entrepreneurs, trying to build your businesses and live their lives with no regrets like you?
Yeah, I think it's when you get into something, like understand your reason for getting into it and try and have a relationship with what you're doing. So the psychology point of view, and I've never studied psychology, but I like to think everything I do has a psychology sort of tie-in, which is about understanding who the consumer is, or who the buyer is, or even who the staff member is, and why they're going to want to enjoy having success alongside you or me. So it's really do something you not necessarily know, but understand. So be the consumer of your own product.
Yeah, having perspective. Yeah, thank you. I'll throw it back to Doc to finish up the show. Yeah.
Cool. Look, Michael,
you're muted. Oops.
Look, I think I had a little bit of connection issues, so I don't know how I got muted, but I was. Yeah, thanks. So, Michael, would love for you to take some time to plug anything. Where can people find you? Anything more about your businesses and so on and so forth. Now's your time.
Yeah, listen, naturalpatch.com is our business. I'm on LinkedIn. You can find me, just search me, or I think I'm probably Michael.Jankie or something like that. I do a little bit of tweeting. I probably should have said, what's the one tool I can't live without? Twitter is probably one of the most educational things I've rediscovered in the last sort of couple of years. I've certainly made investments from tweets and certainly made decisions from tweets. So I'm on Twitter, Facebook and Instagram. That's more sort of personal stuff, so I wouldn't even bother looking there. But it's I'm in Melbourne. I'm on LinkedIn. Hit me up anyway.
Awesome. Unreal. Well, unbelievable story. So many people out there, wanting to start businesses and kind of, stopping themselves for whatever reason. You're a perfect example of someone who just, I would say, has had a crack time after time after time, and definitely some good learning. So, mate, I appreciate you taking the time to talk to us today, and that's pretty much it from our end.
Awesome. It's been heaps of fun, so thank you. I sort of love retelling war stories, thanks so much.
Cool. Awesome.
Michael,
if you ever go back to theater production, I'm an actor, so you can count me.
Excellent.
There you go. You can tell Tino's in sales.
Exactly.
And now you have friends in Argentina too. Tino's there for you.
I will hit you up when I haven't made it to Argentina, but I will hit you up when I get there.
Let's do it, yeah.
Good stuff. All right, well, that's a wrap.